What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another rendition of Dudes Talk Sports, and we have quite a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we had a massive weekend with NFL Draft Day taking place. We also got a lot in the NBA world, We got my Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry putting the team on his back, having a spectacular performance. And of course, we cannot miss the amazing game that was Lakers and Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards stealing the show. But before we get into any of that, make sure you guys like, make sure you guys subscribe, and share this with everybody you know. And without further ado, man, we gotta hop right into this news, man, because there's a lot to unpack. And starting with the NFL draft, listen, Thursday was the first round, and just on that day alone, there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of suspense, and to be quite honest with you, this was one of the best drafts we've had in a while just because there was a lot of shock, there was a lot of surprises, a lot of anticipation, and just a lot that happened which we weren't expecting to happen. Let's be real. Some of these player picks, that these teams went with, not what we were expecting, man. And this just goes to show that teams' draft boards are designed and just built very differently than what the media has it, whether it's ESPN analysts, NFL Network analysts. And I think let's just get into it, right? The first one being the whole Shador Sanders talk, right? Somebody who was projected as a top five pick, I think unanimously was the consensus that he would be in the first round. So to go from that to slip all the way into the fifth round to get chosen by the Cleveland Browns, I think this goes into one thing. The Browns are the Browns, that's for one. Because how are you going to pick Shador? Well, first off, they traded up for him in the fifth round because they didn't want the Eagles to take him. But they're missing some context. And that's with the Cleveland Browns traded up in the third round to go for Dylan Gabriel. And this is just one of the many surprises that happen all throughout this draft. But this is particularly important to me because, as the people may know, I am a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan. That is my team who I'm rocking with. I love the black and gold. And obviously, with Shador going to the Browns, it means he's going to have to deal with my Pittsburgh Steelers twice a year. And with a QB room that consists of Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and of course now Shador Sanders, this just, I feel like, leaves all NFL fans scratching their heads. And, if you're a Browns fan, listen, y'all have dealt with a lot of shit over the years, and it's clearly the cycle continues, man, because listen, let's get this out of the way. You need a quarterback, and I obviously forgot to mention Deshaun Watson, but I think that's because the whole census is, look, Deshaun's not going to play this year. He's not going to, I think he's played his last down for the Browns, to be quite honest with you. I think it's going to get to the point where he does come back. They're not going to play him. They'll just do what the Broncos did, cut him, take that dead cap on, and start from scratch. And I think just the fact that Shador fell all the way down to that is kind of crazy to me. But I think this goes back to a lot of the chatter that was going about all the way back to the combine. His interview's not going well. The fact that he doesn't have an agent. Look, he was represented by his pops, and we know who his pops is, Dion Primetime. And as much as we glamour and admire just the legend that he is, because let's be real, this dude was one of one when he was in the league. Played in the NFL, played in baseball. Let's not forget that. And he was a very polarizing character even during the draft. We can't forget that. He was dictating and saying oh, if the Lions draft me, I'm gonna cause such a ruckus that they're gonna have no choice but to trade me. And for somebody like Deion Sanders, I think that works. I think this is something that in which how is it that I want to put the words? It worked for Dion because he was a freak athlete, but unfortunately for Shador, that was never sort of the comments or neither like the discussion or converse that was ever said about him. You know, he's Mr. Perfect Timing. He has the traits of being able to see downfield and make those nice throws. He's able to pick apart defenses. But when it comes to his talent, you know, he doesn't have the strongest arm out there. You know, he's not this freak athlete by any means, but he's a very solid, great quarterback. And he can for sure start for, he has that capability of starting for an NFL franchise. And I think this is where the downfall of, you know, Dion stepping in just kind of ruined everything for him. Because he was talking about it like saying, oh, he's not going to the Cleveland Browns or he's not going to this team. We're going to dictate our future. We're going to dictate where we go. And I think the way I like to phrase it is, you know, when you go into the NFL, right, you are going in as an employee, right? And the NFL is in your employer. So if you're talking all this crazy talk about your employer, I mean, listen, in the workforce, your ass is getting shipped out, no questions asked. And I firmly believe that, you know, the NFL did this one sort of as a way to show Dion, like, hey, we run the show, you know, like, you don't get to dictate anything. We know who you are, but still, that doesn't mean you're going to have all this power against us. Two, I think it's also just the interview's just not sliding well. And I don't, you know, put that on Shador, right? Because you got to understand this was the environment that he grew up in, right? Like that was just sort of what he was taught. That was just what he was exposed to. And you know, I think I'm gonna leave that at that. And I think one of the things I've been hearing on a lot of these sports shows is, look, he's got an opportunity to do something, right? This was a humbling moment for him, right? Getting picked in the fifth. Obviously, the odds are against you, right? As a fifth rounder going into the league, you're not really given a lot of chances. You're gonna have to fight every way and step of the way into the league to get that respect that you want, right? And you know, obviously he's been through adversity. Like I think he could really do a good job here, and if he can really turn things around for the Browns, like this will forever go as one of those stories that are forever talked about as like looking back, like he fell all to the fifth round and look where he's at now, like all the adversity he had, right? But yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting because at the end of the day, it's not like he was drafted to a great organization. Like this is the Cleveland Browns, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like let's just call it for what it is. And so, but it is the place where I think he has a genuine, real opportunity to start at. And you know, it's kind of interesting seeing some of the comments and some of the tweets from the players like on the Browns team showing support. Obviously, Denzel Ward, David Njoku, right? I think the locker room kind of has already, and it's like the locker room obviously has expressed their feelings on who they want to be their starter, showing that support for Shador, and not for Dylan Gabriel. But once again, it goes back to what I was saying. No one views Dylan Gabriel as a potential starter. I just don't see it. I really liked what he put out in college, but you know, Shador just comes out as the better person or the better prospect in terms of being a real potential starter for a franchise. But being shipped out to the Cleveland Browns is definitely is definitely something. And look, I wanted the Steelers to draft Shador if he fell to us. Um, but you know what? I think in hindsight, I'm like, you know, it's not a bad thing, and it's unfortunate because now I can't root for Shador. He's on the Browns. Like that's the end. That's the ops now. You know what I'm saying? Um, listen. Hopefully it works out, but like I said, it can't work out against the Steelers, man. Two of those games are gonna be whiffs for him. Like he's gonna look like a straight up bust, and that's gonna be against my Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think that's enough Shador talk because let's be real. I feel like in the media, legacy media world, that's all the talk that there's been is Shador falling, and rightfully so. But I think there's a certain extent to where we take it too far. But I do want to talk about some other quick notes about the draft before I talk about how my Pittsburgh Steelers absolutely nailed this draft. And that's just one with Travis Hunter going second overall. I think that wasn't the doubt, but it was who he went to. And that was for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, listen, I really personally love the fit. I gotta say. And I think the biggest problem that I saw was, look, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're picking fifth overall. I don't think Travis Hunter falls necessarily to them, so they're gonna have to trade up if they're gonna get him. Because for what Travis Hunter is saying in this ultimatum he put of really wanting to play both ways, I think that the only team that was really gonna exercise that and really fully utilize him to that extent would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. And to see that Jacksonville Jaguars, Gladstone being the new GM, being as aggressive as he is, coming from that Sean McVay tree and sort of I think the Les Snead GM factory out there in LA Rams, they are very notorious for the fuck them picks sort of approach. And it's clear that I feel like this was a statement for him. And he reiterated that in the press conference, right? Reiterating that, look, this was a statement to sort of let not only Jacksonville Jaguars fans, but the rest of the league know that, look, this is a new regime and we're going to do things differently. And this is one of the new cornerstone pieces that are going to be a part of this franchise and of this new regime going forward. And I really like it. You pair Travis Hunter, this generational talent, raw athlete, obviously he was very, Heisman winner and whatnot. He's going to are able to contribute a lot on defense, most importantly, but as well as your wide receiver, you're going to be able to use him in a lot of packages and whatnot. um I think I can see them going both ways, but I think defense, especially the passing defense, was the biggest detriment for this Jacksonville Jaguars team. So I would really like to see them first prioritize him there, let him get loose, and then from there obviously work his way into the wide receiver role, because him pairing up with Brian Thomas Jr. is a nasty duo. Like, I had him on my draft, like potentially going with McMillan, and that would have been a very nasty combo as well. Just because knowing Liam Cohen, he had Mike Evans with the Bucks, and that was sort of the comp that McMillan had. So I was like, that makes sense. But when you land a generational talent like Travis Hunter, what can you say? Listen, they gave up a lot for him, man. Let's not get that out of the way. Obviously, to get up to the second pick overall, they gave up their fifth. They gave up the 36th and the 126th pick of this draft, as well as a 2026 first round pick. So it's a lot. I'm not gonna lie, just to move up three spots. But when it's someone as generational and as impressive as Travis Hunter, I guess that's just what comes with it. And also we'll have to wait and see how this turns out. I think making it be Travis Hunter who they traded up and gave this capital for helps, and it's just a matter of hoping that Travis Hunter can translate what he did in college into the league, and he can really refine and polish those skills. And I love this. Travis is from Florida. To go to the hometown team, he obviously manifested this all the way back to the Jackson State days. I forget which game it was, but he played at the Jaguar Stadium. He's like, hey, man, it'd be nice to play for this team, man, being hometown Florida. And what do you know? That's the power of manifestation, man. You love to see it. But let's talk about a few more picks. The Bears shocked me with going with Colston Loveland. And this was one of those picks where I'm like, wow. Because I think it was unanimous that Tyler Warren was the number one tight end going into this draft. And so this really shocked everybody. And I think just to really further expand on that, right? I was watching a little bit of the Pat McAfee show today, and Ian Rappaport on there was talking about how there was potential trades that were happening, and from his understanding, teams that were trying to trade up were trying to get Colston Loveland, because he was talking about how the phones were busy, but it wasn't until the Bears made the pick of Colston Loveland where the phones kind of went dead for a while there. And so I think this just goes back to my point earlier that we truly just don't know, like, how teams address their draft boards. Like, every draft board is, constructed differently based on, different philosophies, different team needs, and whatnot, right? And so that's always an important thing that I feel like we should always remind ourselves when we're making these mock drafts. And at the end of the day, we shouldn't take it too seriously. It's just all fun and games, right? Obviously, for NFL teams, it's different, right? There's jobs at stake here, right? This is like their whole livelihood. And it'll be interesting to see. Listen, this is a Ben Johnson pick, no doubt. And from my understanding, the way they were explaining it is that Colston Loveland is a better fit for that, 1-2 punch with Cole Kmet, obviously, on the Bears roster. Um, But you know what? That has yet to be seen. This is definitely one that I wasn't expecting. I know one of my boys who we saw on the show, obviously, he mentioned that it was a possibility that the Bears were probably going to take a tight end in that position over an offensive lineman or a running back. And, clearly that was the case with Genty going to the Raiders, just like I had in my mock, and I'm sure plenty of others had in their mock. That was a no-brainer, with Pete Carroll. He loves his star running backs. Going back to USC with Reggie Bush, and even in Seattle with Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. Shout out. That's the Bay Area native, Oakland native. Yes, sir. If you know, you know. Man, but listen, I love this for the Raiders. I think it's great. But the question is, to me, seeing, look, his potential is going to be definitely halted the first year just because that offensive line needs to be addressed. And so that has yet to be seen. I still think they need a couple more pieces before, Genty could really take off and flourish to be that generational prospect that we all so much heavily have him highly regarded as. Also, this Bucks wide receiver room is stacked. Man, I was not expecting them to go with Igbuka. Like, I thought they would have added, on defense, maybe a linebacker, an edge, or somebody of sorts. But nah, man. And I mean, I wouldn't have expected receiver because they extended both Evans and Godwin. So I was like, okay. And then you have McMillan from obviously from UW last year that they took, and he's been a nice pick too, like a nice addition, and I like that. But listen, if Igbuka can translate his skills into the league, man, this roster is pretty fucking loaded. Like, let's just be real. Like, Baker has all the weapons he needs in his arsenal to really be able to take this team up to the next level. Obviously, adding Bucky Irving last year, this Bucks offense is nasty, and obviously it has yet to be seen, right, with the new offensive coordinator. Can he replicate that success that Liam Cohen had with this Bucks roster last year? Obviously, you add a few tools more onto the offense, and I think that really helps. I think the expectations certainly are a lot higher on the Bucks this year, because with this stacked wide receiver roster, man, it's like I think you just gonna be slinging it. You're gonna see Baker just doing a lot of slinging it on in the season, man. So I think that's one of the teams I really anticipated to see how will play out, and just it's one of those things we gotta wait and see all throughout training camp into the fall, man. But one other thing is, dude, the Packers, man, drafting a wide receiver in the first round for the first time in forever. Listen, that Texas wide receiver, man, Matthew Golden, he's a speedy guy. I had him going to the Cowboys, knowing Jerry Jones, but Jerry Jones said, you know what, Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama, is my guy. And listen, you can't hate. Reiterating, reinforcing the trenches obviously is gonna be good. You can't be mad at that. Obviously having what was it, Tylen Smith retiring, right? Losing some guys, and I just think it was okay. Their offensive line wasn't bad, but just I I don't hate the pick, right? But there could have been different ways you could have addressed this draft. But the Cowboys are the Cowboys. I don't really expect much from them, anyways, regardless. So I'm just kind of like, it's whatever. It don't matter who they picked. But unfortunately, guys, we got to talk about the Ravens because they had a nice draft, man. And as a Steelers fan, obviously, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the Ravens organization. I think that is a rivalry that I feel like we can all unanimously agree that both sides have a certain respect for each other, right? Just the way they run their organization. And just obviously, when it comes to our matchups, man, it's always one of those that, like, it's no other matchup like the Ravens and the Steelers, man. Each time they face off, it's always going to be cinema. And listen, having Malaki Starks, I really like that fit. I think he really fits that Baltimore Ravens, culture. Um, I think Ozzie Newsome really set this team up with the guys out there, Eric DeCosta and whatnot. They cooked. Like, I you got to give props to the Ravens here. So, and I think that the defense was something that they needed to reinforce, and especially with the DB, pairing him up with a guy like Kyle Hamilton, that could be really nasty for the Ravens secondary. Um, Also got to talk about the Eagles, man, because we just keep letting them get away with this shit, man, and it's just tiring, bro. Like, how are you gonna land a fucking linebacker Jahad Campbell after having Kobe Dean, Jordan Davis, man? It's just why? Like, how do we keep allowing this to happen? Like somebody got to do something, bro, because they just keep getting better, and they just won the Super Bowl. They just won the Super Bowl, and oh, one thing we gotta talk about is the Chargers, bro. Because what were they doing? Listen, I love Hampton, the prospect. I thought he was gonna go to the Broncos, but the Broncos obviously ended up going with the defense. That was something that came to a surprise to me. But I think I think it was Peter Schrager was talking about not to be surprised if the Broncos were gonna go defense, and you gotta give props out to him for guessing that, right? I don't hate that pick for the Broncos because I think pairing him up with Jahdae Barron with Pat Sertan really makes their secondary really solidified and just nasty all around, man. But back to the Chargers. You sign Najee in the offseason. You have J.K. Dobbins in the backfield already. And you don't have any receivers. And that was definitely one of the biggest, I feel like, needs going into this draft that you needed to be addressed. You didn't really address it in the offseason. I guess if you want to count signing Mike Williams, but I can tell you right now, as a Steelers fan, he really didn't do much for us. I don't know if that was just because, he came in here mid-season and, we didn't really give him a lot of opportunities to showcase that. But listen, that chapter has come and gone. So maybe we see, a little bit of a resurgence for Mike Williams back at the team that he was drafted at. But yeah, I mean, Hampton's a good pick. Like, he's a great prospect, but my thing is, why sign Najee if you're gonna go with Hampton and Dobbins? That's sort of my, just kind of scratching my head there. Obviously, setting up with Herbert to fail a little bit, in my opinion. But that's Harbaugh, man. He loves his hard nosed football. Jalen Milroe to Seattle and pick 92. This surprised me because I wouldn't have thought Seattle would have gone for a quarterback. Um, I didn't have that on my radar. I really loved the Greg Zabel pick from in the first round. I think that was a really nice pick on their end. This one, I don't know how to necessarily feel because I don't know if he can necessarily develop into the prospect that we have sort of speculated Milroe to become in Seattle. I don't know if that's a good fit, but obviously they trade away Sam Howell, so that clears up space, and that has yet to be seen. But who knows? I think the last time they took a guy in the third round was Russell Wilson, and that was after they paid the QB. I forget who it was at that time, but you just pay Sam Darnold, so you never know. Maybe they're trying to reignite that magic, see if they can get something out of Milroe. Um, Another thing was Isaiah Bond is cooked, man. Dude was projected to be a first round pick. Obviously ran a cool 40, and yeah, we're officially 2 days removed from the draft now, and he hasn't even been signed as an undrafted free agent. And so that really makes me see that those charges and the allegations tied behind him are really bad because when it comes to the NFL, like a lot of teams, they will take chances on guys who have sort of that history, right? Going back to Jalen Carter last year, just as an example, there are plenty of other examples too. And so this really makes me think like, wow, what did Isaiah Bond do, for it to be really this bad? I would have said, hey man, start looking on LinkedIn, but I don't even know if that is gonna be, if they're even gonna accept them there, just based on how bad this case is. So that's gonna be a waited see, or maybe not. Maybe the UFL, maybe not even that. So that's obviously sucks, and he was one of the victims who also got prank called, like Shador. So that obviously sucks, but man, that's the league for you. Now let's get into a deep dive of my Pittsburgh Steelers. And that is, listen, Omar Khan, Andy Weidel, we cooked. Listen, I had a bit of a polarizing reaction as as TikTok and YouTube Shorts was letting me know. But listen, I think clearly this was the approach where we have a sure amount of confidence that Aaron Rodgers is going to be on our team, right? I think Art Rooney was saying that you know he's had good conversations with Aaron. He believes that Aaron wants to be here, and he expects a decision to come soon. And so I strive to have the level of delusion that the front office has, but the front office must know something. They must have, under the table deal with Rodgers or something. Cause yeah, the way we went about this draft really showed me two things. Was one, we have a quarterback plan in place, and two, that Ravens game in the playoff really was the set in stone that gave us PTSD because the emphasis on defense and stopping the run was really apparent. And let's go into this, right? With obviously getting the in the first round, going pick 21, Derek Harmon, D tackle out of Oregon. And let me tell you, I love this pick. Obviously, we lose Larry Ogunjobi after having a rather disappointing season last year, and I think Harmon coming in and having a player comp to Cam Hayward and being on a team with Cam Hayward, how can you not like that? Obviously, his story is amazing, and obviously, my condolences out to him. Obviously, losing his mom, and what a story, man. Obviously, he's been dealing with a lot of family issues, right? Mom's been in the ICU in the hospital in critical condition, and for him to at least be able to tell her that he was drafted, right? And to have that moment with him and then passing, it's like, you know, it's rather bittersweet, And I just hope that the Steelers, as an organization, do the right thing, support him, let him be with his family, and get him right for the season. I think that's the first and foremost, most important thing that needs to be said. And another thing is, he was ranked second in his position and overall had a 91 grade by ESPN. But I think this is a great fit. Going back to what I was saying before, we could not stop the run for jack shit, man. Like, we were the most highest paid defense for what? Just for the Baltimore Ravens to fucking run a train on us and just absolutely make us look like amateurs, man. And so I, in hindsight now, am all for this approach, right? And it is clear that Andy Weidel and Omar Khan were really taking building the trenches seriously, right? Weidel comes from the Eagles organization, who are notorious for building the trenches. As we saw, they won the Super Bowl through the emphasis of building up the trenches. And we saw that approach with other teams throughout this draft. And listen, having Derek Harmon fall to us was absolutely phenomenal. I love it. I think he's going to be a great fit. And who better not to learn than from Cam fucking Hayward? So let's go. I think this is an A plus pick. Obviously, we did need a quarterback, but like I said, I guess the Steelers have a plan at that. Now, on the third round, we drafted Caleb Johnson. Man, I love this pick so much, man. I can't believe he fell to us. But you know what? He did. And I'm not complaining. Listen, I've been from a few other Steelers talks, Steelers fandom, former Steelers playing. They saying this is like our Lev Bell. And I'm all for it. Listen, Lev Bell when he was here was nice, man. That was a generational time to be a Steelers fan. He got an 83 grade. He's ranked fifth in the position. Rushed for a career high 1,537 yards with 21 TDs last year at his in his final year of Iowa. And listen, man, he's a big back. I think he's gonna pair really nicely with Jaylen Warren, having that 1-2 combo. Um, I think one of the things that scouts talked about was that his speed doesn't show up enough in the tape. He's a lot faster than what he looks, and I think it's one of those things where he looks like he runs slower than what he actually runs. And with that being said, I really like this pick. I was kind of hoping we went with Shador this round, but when you go with Caleb Johnson, knowing that's a need we need to be addressed, how can you be mad? Like, seriously, how can you be mad at that? I'm not mad at that. Listen, I really think we was cooking still at this point. And I can't wait to see how Caleb Johnson does behind our newly established line that we've been trying to build up these past 2 years. Next, we got Jack Sawyer in the fourth round. And man, do I love this pick. Listen, I think watching the college football just playoffs, Jack Sawyer was one of the guys on my radar. I was like, man, if he can gut land to Pittsburgh, this would be amazing. Like he really just breathes and lives football. You know, hard nosed guy, very physical dude, and for him to follow us, I really think this was the steal of the draft here. I don't know how he fell this far, but I'm not complaining because now my Pittsburgh Steelers got him. And to pair him up with his teammate Will Howard, who we got in the fifth round, I love it. I really do. I think this is amazing. And we will circle to Will Howard later, but Jack Sawyer, or we gotta call him Captain Jack, man. That's Captain Jack, you know. And listen, he got a strip sack in the semifinals versus Texas. Took it to the house, 83 yards, and that was like the first moment I was like, "Hey, this Jack Sawyer guy, we gotta keep him on the radar." Listen, whoever on the Steelers scouting department, do your thing, and that they did because clearly we landed him, and I'm so excited about that. Listen, I think people are gonna say, "Oh, it was a reach." Look, no, it's not. I really like what he can contribute. Our guys like TJ, Alex Highsmith, Herbig, we dealt with a lot of injuries last year, and so I really think solidifying that depth is gonna help us tremendously. So, A plus for that pick. Yaya Black, obviously, it goes back to stopping the run. Let's stop the run. And this pick is another example of that. He was ranked number 23 in his position, had a 50 grade, and I think the thing with Yaya is he's one of those guys where he can low key disengage from whatever the concept or scheme is being run on the defense, and take that risk for trying to make that play, right? And the way I see this guy fit is, third down, we can plug and play him. Just be like, hey man, we got one mission for you, and that's get the sack, go for the QB, go get that pressure in, and for that, I think it is a tremendous fit for the Steelers. We need a lot more of that. Our QB pressures need to be a lot higher. Obviously, relying on TJ Watt is a lot to ask, and with TJ's future being uncertain, I think this will certainly help our depth piece a lot. Obviously, we got Keanu Benton. You know what I'm saying? I like what Keanu Benton has contributed and the direction he is headed to. But adding somebody like Yaya Black, that's great for me. I can't have any complaints on that. I'm going to give this an A. Will Howard, listen, we obviously missed out on Shador, but it's not the end of the world, man. And I think another person I would have liked was the guy from Syracuse. I think he was a sleeper, also a dark horse. Obviously, he goes to the Eagles, and I'm just like, well, you know what? That is what it is. But to land the national champion, Will Howard, listen, man, I can't. I gotta say, I love this pick, man. He led Kansas State to a Big 12 title in 2022, won the Natty with Ohio State this past year, and he low key got some legs, y'all. He can run. He can clearly scramble when he absolutely needs to. I love that. He can obviously sling it downfield. He had a really nice roster of Ohio State receivers, and coming into a situation in Pittsburgh where we got George Pickens, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, and hopefully Roman Wilson takes that next step this year. I think it's a similar situation. I love the fit, and he's a good guy to, obviously we got him for a fifth round. Let's see what he can do and he can develop. Obviously, if we don't land Aaron Rodgers, we give Mason Rudolph some competition, man. But also the fact that he's from Pennsylvania. He wanted to go to PSU originally, but didn't get the offer. And also him saying he wanted the Pittsburgh Steelers to draft him. It's an amazing story. So, Will Howard, welcome aboard on ship to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the black and gold. He's going to look nice in those colors, man. And also, kind of what I was going back to, him and Sawyer are pretty close. I mean, you look at the clip on the national title game where Will Howard is just trying to juice up, Jack Sawyer. I love that. And now that they're going to be teammates on the Pittsburgh Steelers, like, how much better can it get? So for me, this is an A draft, man, on that. Carson Brenner, I don't know if I'm fumbling that. Obviously, we know his pops got ties to the black and gold, And so this just screamed, oh yeah, this is a Steelers type of pick where we're going for the blood. Obviously we had that with Connor Hayward. We had that with Joey Porter Jr. So I see him being a real special teams guy. He did some nice things at UW, but um, he's a great run defender, obviously with an emphasis of stopping the run, and I think he'll be able to contribute in special teams, maybe in a couple packages here and there. In the defense, kind of like what I was saying before, our linebacker core was really banged up this past year, so I think it was important for us to address and at least add more depth to that. So I can never complain about that. And of course, we got our last pick, Dante Kent from Central Michigan. Listen, like these are sort of later rounds. This is more of like guys you want to, they could be a developmental piece or whatnot. So low risk, high reward sort of thing. He started 48 games, 47 passes defended, averaged 13.6 yards per punt return. He ran well at the pro day, ran a 4.38, good recovery speed, but kind of like I was saying, very much a developmental guy. I think he was like, I don't know what the stat or the graphic was where he was like passes defended, but also passes gave. It was like very polarizing. So I'm like, it could either be really great for him or really bad. And so I leave it to Mike T and the secondary coaches there to sort of develop this guy and hopefully become something. Obviously, when you got a veteran like Darius Slay, that's gonna help out a lot. So I can't really hate the pick. I give it a C just because it's like it could go either way, right? But I think overall, to wrap this up, Steelers killed the draft, man. Listen, Omar Khan does it again. The con artist. Andy Waddle, shout out to him for coming up with the draft boards because apparently he's the one that comes up with these draft boards. And if that's the case, listen, you got to give props off to Waddle, man. By the way, I don't even know if I'm botching this, but I might be botching this so bad. And everybody's laughing, but hey, man, we'll get it right. That is how it goes. And also, kind of what I was thinking, going back to the Aaron Rodgers situation, um, I don't know how this necessarily makes us contenders. I think we'll definitely go into the playoffs. Winning that first game, I think if we stay healthy, for sure, I think we win our first playoff game. I think we can make a good run, but it's just hard, man. Listen, like with this draft, our division drafted, at least when it comes to the Ravens, they drafted spectacular, man. I got to give them props to that. The rest of the AFC also drafted pretty well. Like this was the draft where like you only had like maybe one or two generational guys, but there was a lot of great value, a lot of guys that will fill up the roster really nicely and provide that great value. And so I think that has yet to be seen, but I think when it comes to Rodgers, I'm still kind of mixed between is this really going to be what gets us over the hump? But kind of like Tomlin says, I don't like to deal with a lot of this speculation too much. It either happens or it doesn't. And so I'm going to leave that there. Overall, this draft was great. I had a lot of fun, man. The reactions were awesome. And yeah, I can't wait till these guys get in the building. We get into training camp. We get to hear how they're doing. And heading into the preseason, it should be a fun time to watch. But moving on from the NFL draft, let's pivot over to the NBA. That is with my Golden State Warriors handling business at home versus the Rockets. Man, listen, guys. Steph just put the whole team on his back. He said, no Jimmy buckets, no playoff Jimmy, no problem. I got y'all. And boy, did he mean business. Winning 104-93, dropping fucking 36 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists. Like, this is the GOAT. That is my GOAT right there, Steph Curry. Put some respect on his name. All right? Dude was getting grabbed and just mauled like nothing, bro. Like, they weren't even giving him calls, and this is his home court. Like, they played at Chase Center, and even with all this grabbing and whatnot, he still said, hey, I got y'all. Like, hey, I saw that clip where he told GP2, he's like, hey, pass me the ball. Proceeds to fucking cook the fucking Rockets, and he drops that nice little stinker in there. I'm like, what can this man not do? You know? But going back to some of the more important stats and impressive stats, um, Buddy had a nice performance: 17 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. GP2 with a stellar 16 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 7 or 9 in the field goal. We got 2 for 3 in the 3 point. Like, this was a vintage GP. Like, honestly, I was like, is that his pops out there? Like, yo, who is this guy? Like, I saw 2022 GP2 in there. I'm like, listen, I'm not complaining. I love this. I'm a huge GP2 fan. I was sad to see him go, and I was really excited when we traded back for him. And to see him contribute the way he did yesterday, or not yesterday, but on Saturday, that was awesome to see, man. And I really hope he can keep this momentum up. Obviously, it's a lot to ask from him because he's not really the type of player to really put up this type of performance all the time, let alone in the playoffs. But as a fan, what can you do except be delusional and hope for the best, you know? Post with nice 9 defensive rebounds, 12 total rebounds, and 4 assists. Draymond with 7 defensive rebounds, 8 total rebounds, and 4 assists. Also locking up. Jalen paints his nails green. Also, Pods dealing with a little bit of some food poisoning from what I could tell. Didn't do too much, but he did what he could with 4 rebounds there, and a team total of 45 rebounds. And now I think with the Warriors, they did a really good job on defense. Obviously, offensively, Steph put the whole team on his back there. Obviously, Buddy having a better performance this time around, which was needed. I said, listen, if we're not going to have playoff Jimmy in game 3, we need guys like GP2 and Buddy to step up. And boy, did they did. And that was great to see, man. And my hope is can Buddy at least keep this momentum going for game 4, because from what it appears, the Warriors are confident that Jimmy Butler is going to return tonight for game 4, but even then, he's going to be banged up, and I think it's still going to be important that we have guys like Buddy and GP2 to contribute, not only offensively, but GP2 defensively there in the fourth. And the Rockets, man, it just wasn't a good look for them. You know, relying purely on Jalen Green, dropping a stinker of 9 points. He did have 6 rebounds, 5 assists, but just wasn't great. And to be honest, for all that shit he was talking, man, if you're gonna drop 9 points, I think it's just better not say anything, man, because the performance didn't back up all that trash talk, man. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, he has yet to win a playoff series, so that's sort of my thing. Is like, you really can't talk till you win that playoff series, and especially if he's like, the expectations for him is to be a superstar, but he has yet to live up to that, man. Obviously, that 38, 36 points that he dropped was really nice, but you got to be consistent. And so he keeps flip flopping back and forth. And so, like I was saying before, this year is really going to be a make or break year for Jalen Green to see and determine his future on this Houston Rockets team. Fred VanVleet with a nice 17 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Sengun, 15 points. You know, not bad. Wasn't terrible, but like I said, when your star player, Jalen Green, only drops in 9 points, that's really going to be a detriment to your team. And Dylan Brooks, with his failed attempt of aura farming, dropped 13 points, 6 rebounds, and fouled himself out the game. Um, that's just Dylan Brooks, y'all. Ahmed Thompson, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Also known as fucking murderer because he tried to take out Jimmy Butler on that last game. Let's not forget about that. And also an important stat to know, they had a total of 51 rebounds. So they had more rebounds than us, but just couldn't capitalize off those rebounds, obviously. 51 to 45. But I think it's going back to what I was saying. If the Rockets really want to win this, they need everybody to show up, right? More specifically, you need Jalen Green to be consistent, right? Consistently dropping those 30 bombers, right? If he wants to be considered that all-star that people have and those expectations on him. When it comes to the Warriors, listen, man, I love the physicality that we're matching because this team is physical. I'm Udoka, right? Like we know when it comes to his teams, they're gonna be, physical and potentially play dirty. And for us to, be able to protect our home, be able to, close this out the way we did without Jimmy buckets, having role guys and our depth guys showing up, you love to see it. And I think if worst case scenario Jimmy doesn't show up for game 4, I'm not sure if we can, win the way we did again today, or not today, but on Saturday. So I'm really fingers crossed, hoping that Jimmy comes back for that game. But if not, I think it's up in the air. I think it's anybody's game. I just don't know if we can rely on Steph to have another one of those performances again. Like I said, emphasis on, for example, Pods needs to step up this next game. So hopefully, he's recovered from that food poisoning that he was purportedly having, and he can drop some, have another stellar performance out of him. But I think to wrap up this out, listen, and it's gonna go. I'll talk about this a little bit more in detail right now. Seeing the way that the Lakers and Timberwolves game is going and panning out, if the Timberwolves win this out, I think this puts a little bit of pressure on the Warriors. Kind of, I was talking with my friend about this. We do need to wrap up business because it's gonna be a race of who can win first, the Timberwolves or the Warriors. And I think if we can win out first, that puts us in an advantage because obviously that gives us more time to rest, and that's always a great thing when you got a little bit of older guys on your roster. And so that's what I'm saying. If Jimmy can come back, I feel really great about us being able to close off the series. Gives him more time to recover as well. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on kind of we're heading into game 4 tonight. It's really up in the air, but if Jimmy comes back, I like our chances, man, at home to be able to close this out. And obviously, seemingly looking to lock this up in a game 5 at Houston. But kind of previewing what I was saying before, let's talk about this last game more in depth. Yesterday, the Lakers and Timberwolves game 4 took place. Man, this was an amazing game. I was watching this, trying to multitask at work and trying to keep up with this game. And I just gotta say, Ant is him, bro. Like, hey, he told you guys remember that clip from the Netflix show where he was telling motherfucking Barack Obama, he was like, "Nah, man, I forget what the word." He's like, "I'm him, pretty much. Like, you gotta respect me." I don't like. Somebody got to bring up that clip, man, because you guys know what I'm talking about. He like manifested that, right? And another thing I need to talk about is this Lakers depth is cooked. Like, holy smokes! Like, dude, like, can you really like? I think this really goes back to the whole argument. Like, can you really blame Darvin Ham for the way his team performed? Now we're seeing it again with JJ Redick. Like the way the team is constructed, like they have zero depth. Like they don't trust guys outside of Luca, LeBron, and Rui to really, you know, handle business. And obviously AR at 15, right? But let's kind of go. This was sort of like I wouldn't say a rookie mistake by JJ Redick. Or maybe yeah. I think it can go either of two ways, right? Because when you play your starters for as long as he did, and for them to not just getting gas, like they were all gassed by the end of the fourth quarter, man. And my thing was like, if your star players are gassed, they're not really contributing much. Why not give the bench player, they're refreshed, give them some rest. You know what I'm saying? Look, Lucas scored 38 points, but he did play a whopping 46 minutes. From my understanding, he was recovering from the flu, so you know maybe that has a lot to do with it. But yeah, defensively, this Lakers team was just nowhere to be found, and this was one of those games where unfortunately LeBron had to really step up again at 40 years old, which is kind of crazy to think, like relying on a 40-year-old man like LeBron to really step up and just try to be the playmaker and the star of the game, man. He had 27 points, played for 46 minutes, had 12 rebounds, 8 assists. Like, LeBron was doing all he could, man. But that fourth quarter, it was just tough for him. Scored 0 points, 0 for 2 in the field goal, one foul and one turnover. Just it was just rough. He was clearly gassed, man. Going from playing Friday night to Sunday afternoon, just not a lot of time of rest for him in between. Rui had a cool 23 points, 5 rebounds. Yeah, Rui, you got to give hats off to him. He obviously played nice, I think. Um, that was a good performance out of him, but fortunately not enough against Ant and Timberwolves. Reeves had 17 minutes, didn't do too much, had 7 rebounds, cool 35 minutes played. Finney Smith whopping 6 points, 41 minutes. but he did have some rebound, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. So he still helped out where he could. But outside of these guys, like it's bad. It's really bad for the Lakers, man. Like they have zero depth, and I'm just sort of wondering, like what do you do, right? Because it's clear that, and I think this goes back, like was Nico Harrison cooking when he said defense wins championships? Like because that's been the biggest thing is like Luka doesn't have that defense on him, like he can score, but if he doesn't have that defense in him, you got to rely on the depth and the rest of the roster to make up for that defense. And I just don't see the rest of this roster having that in them. And so the Timberwolves really took control of this game, forced the Lakers to really play their game. I mean, the Lakers barely played their center for like 4 minutes. So they were trying to rely on small ball, which I don't think the Lakers can necessarily do that. Their roster isn't built for that sort of play style. Um, but going back to the Tims, man, some of their box score notable stats. Ant with the 43 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Julius Randle, 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. And Jaden fucking McDaniel, 16 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. And of course, you can't forget Naz Reid coming off the bench with 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. I mean, the Timberwolves just have better depth, man. It's just it's been clearly obvious here and there. Like they have better depth, and when they're on their rhythm, I really think this Timberwolves team is nasty. Um, I think in terms of between the Lakers and the Timberwolves, if the Warriors do win this series out, I still prefer the matchup against the Timberwolves. But seeing how the Timberwolves are performing right now, I definitely have my skepticism of the Warriors because I think it is turning up to be a much more intense matchup than I would have given credit to the Timberwolves for previously. But it all depends on consistency, right? And I think this really comes down to Ant because Ant has really refined his game, right? Being able to shoot from the three, and just from anywhere, right? So kind of having to defend Ant makes things a lot more difficult. Another thing is too, like when it comes to the Lakers, right, and why I still feel like I like our matchup against the Timberwolves better, right? The Lakers have a lot of strong people, but they don't really have that shiftiness or that speed, you know. Versus if you're Julius Randle and you're defending someone like a De'Aaron Fox, right? Like think about having to defend like Julius Randle having to go against Steph, right? Like I'm just saying, man, it's just not gonna be great. Um, Listen, and obviously we talking about Rudy Gobert, like he did have that egregious foul. That was funny, man. And just him and seeing him and LeBron go back and forth, I was like, dang, like the league, seeing how LeBron was sort of whining for those fouls, like, and then seeing that crazy camera angle that I've never seen ever in my life. I was like, damn, the league really said, nope, you're not getting away with this, Tubby. And so I'm just like, yo, the league is standing on business in that regards, man. But I think the Lakers are in real big trouble here. Obviously, that trade for the center for net for I forget his name, like Williams or something, the center from Charlotte. Obviously, that didn't go through, and I think that's starting to come back and bite them because they don't have a solidified center, and that's really holding them back. Like I said, they can't play small ball. They don't have the roster for it. Um, and maybe I think Lakers fans start looking at Darvin Ham differently, realizing maybe he wasn't the problem, was a problem, but not the problem. Because clearly this roster, I think outside, like the only people that are safe is Luca, LeBron, um, Rui. He's up in the air. I mean, he definitely had this nice. I think this performance keeps him safe. Um, AR-15, I could see that, but everybody else, it's like you might have to start packing your bags because I think there's just not enough defense. Like that's the biggest thing, and the Timberwolves absolutely have defense on lockdown for real, and that was very apparent in this game. So I could see the Timberwolves, you know, really close this out. I think the Lakers do have win one more game. I think that is we're gonna see that happen. But I do think the Timberwolves will, you know, they'll get the job done, and I think they'll advance to the next round. Um, so I think with the Lakers, if they get bounced out, I think that's the biggest question is roster turnover, having a solidified center, having guys who can really defense and play defense, and to help complement guys like Luca. And for the Timberwolves, man, I think the thing is like, hats off to y'all. I have to give you guys a lot more credit where it's due. Obviously, Ant has really stepped up, and their depth is also starting to step up more. It's just all about consistency, staying on rhythm, and I can see them really closing out this series, man. Now, final thing we got to talk about today is this whole stupid debate of 100 men versus one gorilla. Like, kind of want to just see that happen, just to let natural selection take its place. But like, come on, y'all, it's a gorilla. Like, I feel like we underestimate how strong a silverback gorilla is. Like you are not throwing hands with one. Like, let's think about it. You put everybody in arena. It's just your fist, bro. That gorilla is tearing you to shreds because the amount of strength that you have. Like, you just search up a video of two gorillas fighting each other, and that should tell you enough of where how capable they are with their strength, man. And I just felt the need to say it because I'm like, bro, like this discourse has gone ridiculous. He got ESPN talking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, is this really what legacy media has come to, man? And so that's all I'm gonna say about it. Is that gorilla is winning, man? Like no questions asked. You give him a banana and he cooking. He is cooking y'all like Donkey Kong. But that's all I had for you guys today. Like I said, we're working on trying to make and improve this podcast. Obviously, a lot of the other times, man, we've been trying to go damn near 2 hours long. So, listen, we're making strides with this. Obviously, shout out to all our newest supporters. Obviously, this weekend we started to pick up a little bit of traction, get some more eyes on the program, and if you decide to stay, I welcome you aboard. Your presence is very much appreciated, man. To all my new Steelers fans or Warriors fans joining us for the first time, hey, welcome to the club, man. You guys are in the best fandoms ever, which is my Golden State Warriors and my Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Shout out to y'all, man. Listen, let me know down below in the comments below, what do you guys think? What do you think about this draft? How would you guys grade Omar Khan and Andy Weidel for cooking up in this draft? I think we did great, but what do you guys think? Do you think there was another position of need that we could have addressed? Obviously, I know quarterback was probably the other one. Also, what are your guys' thoughts on Aaron Rodgers, man? Do you really think he's going to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Or do you think that the Steelers are holding up on nothing but a lot of false hope? And if that's the case, do you guys feel confident with the current QB room we have that consists of Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson? Also, what are your guys' thoughts on Shador to Cleveland? Where do you guys, or how do you guys see that panning out? Do you guys think he's going to stay there? Do you guys think he's going to get cut before the season starts? And also, what are you guys' thoughts on the draft overall? Who were some picks that surprised you the most? Who are some dark horse candidates that you think isn't being talked about enough that you could see really um, being a top sleeper draft pick, who can really flourish this year as soon as their rookie year? Also, let me know your guys' thoughts on this Rockets versus Warriors series. And how do you guys feel about the game going into tonight? You guys think Jimmy will come back? And if you guys do you guys think the Warriors and will do enough to, close this series out right now? And in terms of the Lakers and Tims, listen, if I got any Lakers fans watching, what are your guys' thoughts? What are your guys' concerns? Do you think that this Lakers roster as a whole needs to be, revamped? And if it does, who do you guys want to see being added to this roster? And what changes do you want to see made heading into this offseason? Um, and also let me know on that debate versus the Gorilla versus the 100, man. I'm going to stand with what I said. I think it's the Gorilla for sure, without a doubt. But if anybody out there really is going to pick the Pro 100, man, I really want to hear your guys' like analysis on this. Like, I really do. I really am curious what the thought process behind that is. But with all that being said, I'm going to wrap things up here. I got to get editing this out hopefully before this Warriors game tonight. And with that being said, I hope y'all have an absolutely amazing day, an amazing week. And until next time, this is EJ signing out with Dude Talk Sport. Peace.